Welcome back to Grasping the Gridiron. As always, I'm your host, Zach Thummelin. Thank you for listening. We're back with episode 24 in our Week 12 preview and predictions. First off, if you have not liked and subscribed already, please do so. My goal is to grow this channel as much as possible and to try to help as many people as I can understand the game of football better. If that's something you can get down with, please subscribe and join the team at Grasping the Gridiron. We're available on YouTube, Spotify, and Substack. Links to all those platforms will be available in the description. And then last here in our housekeeping, I've made a change. All the rankings that we use in this show, in our college football segment and our obsessed with college football segment, will be the coaches poll or CFP rankings later in the season. While the AP poll is an awesome point of reference, I really like the coaches poll more during the regular season in comparison. And as we progress, the CFP rankings become the only rankings that matter, as the final version is the only determining factor in the postseason. So that's just a change I'm going to make. And the AP and coaches poll, ironically, have no bearing on who gets to make it to the college football playoff and how the postseason is determined. So for that point, I think they're great points of reference, but the CFP ultimately becomes the one that matters. And teams are at mercy of the seating committee, for better or for worse, and that's why I'm making these adjustments, because it's really the only postseason poll that matters when it comes down to it. And the 12 teams that are selected by that committee are the 12 teams that will be competing for the national champion. Our game of the week this week in week 12 is number 10 Texas at Georgia, number 5 Georgia, that is, and it'll be on Saturday at 4:30 Pacific on ABC. Georgia enters this one with one of the most balanced attacks in the country. They average 435 yards per game, which is good for 32nd in the FBS, and they average 34 points per or 33.4 points per contest, which is 29th in the country. Quarterback Gunnar Stockton has thrown for 2,035 yards and 15 touchdowns with just 2 interceptions on the year, while running back Nate Frazier leads the ground game with 575 yards and 3 scores. Defensively, the Bulldogs ranked 20th overall and 12th against the run, holding opponents to just 19.8 points per game. And that's been Kirby Smart's sort of staple. And defending the run has really been what's made Kirby Smart his money at Georgia. And it's what's allowed them to win national championships and put so many players into the NFL, like your Jordan Davises, your Nolan Smiths, and the list goes on and on. And, on the flip side of this, this is a huge game for Texas, and especially Texas quarterback Arch Manning. He has 2,123 yards and 18 touchdowns this season, and has an opportunity to beat number 5 team and really boost Texas's chances of making it to the college football playoff should they go on and beat Texas A&M to finish off the season. I firmly believe, that this Texas team could do that. The Longhorns ranked 22nd in total defense and second in the nation against the run. So, they're really, honestly, in terms of just sheer numbers, better than Georgia in that regard, and are built to be able to stop high-powered offenses. And it's really what's propelled them to a 7-2 record this year. And it's why I think Texas, if they play consistent, can give them fits. And I firmly believe this is a great opportunity for Arch Manning. And, within that on the defense, Texas also boasts a +8 turnover margin, which is 10th in the country. And the one thing on the flip of that is penalties have been an issue, where they have 66.1 yards per game, which is 117th. And Georgia is coming off of a 41-21 win over Mississippi State, while Texas survived Vanderbilt 34-31 in its last outing. The Bulldogs host Charlotte next week, and the Longhorns welcome Arkansas to Austin on November 22nd. So in this one, I'm going to go with the consistency. I'm going to go with Kirby Smart and the 8-1 Georgia Bulldogs. I think that The home field advantage really is going to play into this as well. And while Arch Manning has a great opportunity, and I like Texas to give them fits, I think Georgia's going to come out with this one. Taking a look at what else is happening around the country, number 10 Oklahoma at 7-2 visits number 14 Alabama, who's 8-1 on the year. This game's at 12:30 Pacific on ABC. Alabama brings a really fun attack led by quarterback Ty Simpson, who's thrown for 2,461 yards and 21 touchdowns to just one interception on the year, which Ty Simpson is a lot of people's pick to be the Heisman Trophy winner. And I firmly agree that's a great selection. And there are a number of players that I like, but if he were to get it, I think that's just fine. And I really like him to potentially pull this out should Alabama win out the rest of the year. The Tide averaged 403.1 yards per game and ranked 14th nationally in passing offense. Their defense is among the nation's best, allowing just 303.8 yards per game and 17.2 points per contest. Oklahoma's defense also stands out on the year, ranking seventh in the FBS in total defense with 264.2 yards per game, and they're fourth against the run as well. So they really, really stand out, and a lot of people think that could be a point in this game that could give Alabama fits, but. Alabama's a passing team, so I'm not sure. I think they may catch Oklahoma outside of their element a little bit, not having to defend the run as much as they're used to. But we'll have to see come Saturday. Quarterback John Mateer's thrown for 1,949 yards and to 8 touchdowns in a limited year with a hand injury that put him out of some games earlier this year. Alabama earned a 20-9 win over LSU last week behind Simpson's 277 passing yards, while Oklahoma topped Tennessee 33-27 on November 1st. The Tide host Eastern Illinois next week, and the Sooners return home to face number 19 Missouri on November 2nd. That's current ranked number 19 Missouri. We don't know what's going to happen in the rankings as time goes by. But right now, I really, really am a big fan of Alabama and what Kalen DeBoer's done this year. I think Kalen DeBoer is one of the best coaches in the country, and I think that this Alabama Crimson Tide team, this squad has a chance to go on and be a passing heavy team that goes on to win a national championship. And I like them here at home against John Mateer and the Oklahoma Sooners. Next up, Iowa, who's 6-3 on the year, travels west to face number 18 USC, who's 7-2 on the year. And on Saturday, November 15th at 12:30 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. The Trojans boast one of the nation's top offenses, ranking second in the FBS with 503 yards a game and seventh in scoring at 39.6 per game. Quarterback Jaden Mayava has thrown for 2,614 yards and 17 touchdowns, while running back King Miller has added 636 yards and 5 scores on the ground. Makai Lemon leads USC's receiving corps and with 937 yards and 7 touchdowns, and has really just been such a pleasure to watch. He's a budding star and a guy that's going to make a lot of money on Sundays in the future. Iowa counters with one of the stingiest defenses in college football, and they look good against Oregon in their last game. And they've been allowing 250 yards per contest, which is good for fourth in the FBS, with 13.7 points per contest, which is fifth. Quarterback Mark Gronowski is thrown for 1,084 yards and 5 touchdowns, while Kamari Moulton leads the run game with 522 yards, and what's been a really solid ground game for Iowa. USC is coming off a 38-17 win over Northwestern, behind Mayava's 299 passing yards and 3 total touchdowns. Iowa nearly upset number 6 Oregon last week, falling 18-16, and the Trojans visit Oregon next, while the Hawkeyes return home to visit Michigan State on November 22nd. Honestly, I really like Iowa in this one. The forecast is rainy and Los Angeles. And so I think Iowa, coming off of a near upset of Oregon, really puts USC in some unique positions, even in their home turf or home grass, whatever USC plays on. I just think that this USC offense is really explosion and explosive play based. And when you're playing a team like Iowa that's so defensively sound, I think they're going to put USC in some positions that may be compromising. And I think the way that Mark Gronowski and this offense plays, leading with the ground game first, and the way that they did that against Oregon, I think they're going to be inspired to continue that against USC. And I think that's really gonna cause that Lincoln Riley team some fits, and I'm going with Iowa on the road getting an upset against USC. Now, taking a look at what's happening in the Northwest, number six Oregon, who's 8-1, hosts Minnesota, who's 6-3 on the year, and this is a Friday game at 6 p.m. on Fox. The Ducks enter as one of the nation's most complete teams. Quite frankly, they average 471.6 yards and 38.7 points per game, while allowing just 239.3 yards, and in which is best in college football. And quarterback Dante Moore's thrown for 1,884 yards and 19 touchdowns with a 70.5% completion rate. And running back Noah Whittington powers a ground game that's ranked sixth nationally. Minnesota leans on its defense, which ranks 21st in total yards allowed at 311.6 per game, and 21st against the run. Offensively, the Gophers have struggled to move the ball, averaging just 313.1 yards per game. Quarterback Drake Lindsey has 1,743 passing yards and 10 touchdowns on the year. Oregon beat Iowa 18-16 in a nail-biter last week behind Whittington's 118 rushing yards, while Minnesota beat Michigan State 23-20 on November 1st. The Ducks host number 20 USC next, and the Gophers travel to Northwestern on November 22nd. I like Oregon here, especially at home, rolling against Minnesota, and I think they put together a complete game and continue a great season. Next up, 6-3 Washington hosts Purdue, who's 2-8 on the year. This one's a 4 p.m. game on Fox Sports 1. The Huskies bring a balanced attack into the matchup, averaging 417.8 yards and 32.7 points per game behind freshman quarterback Damon Williams Jr., who's thrown for 2,251 yards and 15 touchdowns, while he's completed nearly 72% of his passes. Running back Jonah Coleman has been a red zone force with 13 rushing touchdowns, and receiver Denzel Boston leads the team with 730 yards and 8 scores for Washington. Washington's defense has really been stout, ranking 26th nationally in total yards allowed and 23rd against the run. Purdue, meanwhile, has struggled on both sides of the ball, ranking 92nd in total offense and 103rd in defense. Quarterback Ryan Brown has thrown for 1,898 yards and 9 touchdowns, but he also has 8 interceptions. So it's been an inefficient year in terms of touchdown to interception ratio and decision making there. The Huskies are coming off a 13-10 loss to Wisconsin, which really kind of puts a nail in their season and really deflates what was a really promising season and hopeful season for the Huskies. Purdue fell 34-10 to Ohio State, while Washington travels to UCLA next week, and Purdue will wrap up its season hosting number 2 Indiana on November 28th. This is I think a really great opportunity for Washington to still salvage some hope and maybe potentially propel themselves to a 9-3 record on the year, and I think that all things considered would be great. Even though they had college football playoff hopes, I think a 9-3 season is still great. I mean, and especially behind Jed Fish here. In his short tenure here at Washington. I think it would be a phenomenal foundation to build on going forward for the Huskies, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think Washington's gonna get the win. I think the home field advantage is going to help up there on Mount Lake, and I think the Huskies will advance to 7-3. Washington State hosts Louisiana Tech on Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific on the CW. Washington State is 4-5 on the year, while Louisiana Tech is 5-4. The Cougars will try to snap a two-game skid behind quarterback Zevi Eckhouse, who's thrown for 1,244 yards and 9 touchdowns, but he also has 8 interceptions on the year. Running back Kirby Voorhees leads WSU's ground game with 397 yards and 3 scores, while receiver Josh Meredith has 518 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. Washington State's defense has kept the team competitive and kept them in some really awesome games against Virginia and Ole Miss, notably. But in their last outing against Oregon State, a team that just had really struggled all the year long, it really showed the lack of offensive production, or what can happen when you have a quarterback that throws 2 interceptions and some injuries on the offensive line. But back to the positives for Washington State. They ranked 27th nationally in total defense and 20th against the pass, but the turnovers again have been costly. Now back to the offense. The Cougs sit last in the FBS with a -10 margin. Louisiana Tech enters with a +6 turnover edge and a top 20 scoring defense, allowing just 18.9 points per game. Bulldogs running back Clay Thievenen, rather. He leads the charge with 503 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns, while quarterback Blake Baker has added 1,228 yards through the air. Baker is actually going to be out for the game, and that leaves some QB questions for Louisiana Tech with no confirmed starter as of yet. And so look for Cougar defensive coordinator Jesse Bobbitt to sprinkle in some unique simulated pressures with some linebackers dropping back and some maybe some cover zero blitz like we've seen to throw off the backup quarterback and whoever plays in that game. Louisiana Tech is coming off a 25-24 loss to Delaware, and Washington State fell 10-7 to Oregon State. Up next, Washington State will travel to Virginia to face James Madison on November 22nd, while Louisiana Tech returns home to host Liberty. I'm going to go with Washington State here, especially with them being at home and Louisiana Tech having question marks at quarterback. I think the WSU defense, with that being their strong point all year, I think they're going to take advantage of that and get a nice win here at home in Pullman. 2-8 Oregon State heads to Tulsa, Oklahoma to face 2-7 Tulsa on Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific on ESPN Plus. Both teams had just not been great at all this year, and the Beavers averaged just 19.6 points per game, which is good for 121st in the nation, or bad, I should say. Tulsa isn't much better at 21.9 points per game, ranking 108th, and Oregon State really has leaned heavily all year long on running back Anthony Hankerson, and he's piled up 969 yards and 9 touchdowns this year, which is just a phenomenal season through 10 games, and he'll definitely continue to grow. And at the end of the year, I think he'll look back on a really, really phenomenal season. Quarterback Malik Murphy is thrown for 1,749 yards and 9 scores, and they've also gone with Jabari Johnson, so it'll be interesting to see what Oregon State does at quarterback moving forward and in this matchup against Tulsa. Tulsa's offense runs through quarterback Baylor Haynes, who has 1,564 yards and 9 touchdowns. And running back Dominic Richardson has 696 yards and 3 touchdowns. Turnovers have been an issue for both teams. They rank near the bottom nationally in turnover margin, and defensively, Oregon State's gonna hold an edge there, allowing 372.9 yards per game, and they rank 14th nationally on third downs. Tulsa's defense has struggled, giving up 416 yards and nearly 31 points per game. So it'll be interesting to see how each team fares, especially Oregon State traveling across country to Oklahoma to take on Tulsa. Last week, Oregon State fell 21-17 to Sam Houston despite 166 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns from Hankerson, while Tulsa lost 40-21 to Florida Atlantic. Up next, Tulsa visits Army on November 22nd, and Oregon State travels to Washington State on November 29th. I'm going to go with Tulsa here, especially being at home. I think that they're going to be able to, ground out a win in front of their fans. I don't think Oregon State, especially after last year losing to Sam Houston State, or last week, sorry, losing to Sam Houston State. I think that the locker room's going to be a little discombobulated, and especially having to travel across the country, I think Tulsa is going to take advantage of that and be able to come up with a win against the Beavers. 6-3 Boise State travels to San Diego to face a 7-2 San Diego State squad for a late night Mountain West clash, with kickoff set for 7:30 p.m. Pacific on the CBS Sports Network. The Aztecs have built their success on their defense this season. They rank 6th nationally in total yards allowed with 262.9 and 4th in scoring defense with 13.1 points per game. Quarterback Jaden Denigle's thrown for 1,550 yards and 8 touchdowns, while running back Lucky Sutton leads the offense with 893 yards and 8 scores. Boise State brings a more balanced attack, averaging 428 yards per game, good for 34th in the FBS. And quarterback Maddox Madsen has passed for 1,994 yards and 15 scores, while Dylan Riley powers the ground game with 745 yards and 7 scores. Both teams enter looking to rebound from tough losses, where San Diego State was routed 38-6 by Hawaii last week, and Boise State fell 30-7 to Fresno State on November 1st. Up next, San Diego State hosts San Jose State on November 22nd, while Boise State returns home to face Colorado State the same day. I think San Diego State is going to get a rebound here against Boise State at home. I think the key to this game is going to be edge Trey White for San Diego State, and I think he recently had a pretty solid game, and I think he's gonna respond in that regard too. And I think the team's gonna follow suit, and I think San Diego State will get the win against Boise State.